There's been a lot of criminal cases in boxing, like going back to the great Stanley Ketchel, who was a great middleweight champion, like in the Jack Johnson era. He was murdered, by a jealous ranch hand. He supposedly was, fooling around with the wrong woman. And cases after that where guys became like Jack Blackburn, the great coach of one of the greatest heavyweight champions, Joe Louis. Jack Blackburn was actually locked up for murder twice. Somehow beat the rap and got out. And not only was he a great fighter, but he coached one of the greatest fighters of all time, Joe Louis. Then there was Tony Ayala, when I was growing up, was a great fighter that was going to be world champion. He was 19 or 20 years old, and he got locked up for rape and burglary and did like almost 20 years in jail. Still came out, and then he made a comeback, and he was still pretty good, but he was old. But the case that was sticking out in my mind that we never hear much about, it was a very unfortunate case, was James Butler, who people will remember the incident on ESPN. It was about 20 years ago. I think it was 2001. And he was awaiting the decision, which he clearly lost. And he went over to his opponent barehanded and sucker punched him. And he got arrested, and I believe he went to Rikers Island for maybe 6 months. I mean, not enough.
I remember seeing the old clip of that. It was like a devastating, sucker
terrible.
punch, and then the announcers. I don't know if it was Teddy Atlas at the time, but
it was.
Yeah, I remember the clips of him saying, arrest this guy. This is assault. Forget about the ban on boxing. This guy needs to go away for what he just did.
Yeah, and he was right, but he didn't go away long enough. And then I found out that when he got out of jail, I didn't even know Max Kellerman had a brother, but Max Kellerman, the commentator's brother, was I believe he was a freelance sports writer, and I guess a real good guy. And he took this guy in because James Butler had nowhere to go. But I believe he understood it was going to be briefly, and James Butler didn't want to leave. And I believe Max Kellerman's brother told him, you got to go. Next thing you know, James Butler murdered Max Kellerman's brother. And I believe they gathered the evidence. I think it was 2004. Then he wound up getting convicted to like 30 years.
The Pod Matrix.